Yeah, I think this update's awesome. Like, I'm feeling like a lot of color from it. It kind of feels like I'm walking in Greece or something. Like I really feel the heat coming off the buildings, and I think that that's one of those things that's really difficult to get. Um, so I like all of your updates. I think um, like you pretty much nailed it. Like I really like a lot of what's going on in this corner here, like the bright light hitting the plants and then it being a little bluer on this side. I think that's really working. Um, and I other things I like is I like how the feeling of the sun um, and like hitting here and spilling across. Like this is really successful to me. Like the way this side of the wall looks. So I, you know, some of the ways that you can tell that like it's a really bright day is just how much bounce light the sun is actually giving you. And somehow like now like with these changes I feel like I can feel that kind of spilling across, and that's really nice. I almost feel like if you wanted to take this further, I think like this light here that's hitting this side of the box, you could maybe introduce a little bit of that on this guy here, on this barrel. Um, it's like I think it would just kind of unify the the two. And like same thing here, getting a little bit of whatever that light that's coming in is. Um, but other than that, I mean, I think this is a really successful image. This you told me this was your first time doing like environment stuff, and I think I think it's like a really successful look. So it's funny. I was like looking at this sliver of sky here, and I was trying to think like what would the sky look like if you were exposing here, and I think it's not a huge deal. I think it works with your color palette. I was trying to think like what it would actually look like if you were like taking this image, and I think that the sky would be slightly more overexposed than this, but maybe not. It's like just you can like try it out and see. And the other thing I was going to say is, again, like watch out for your like sharp shadows, like your fill shadows. Um, Sometimes, and I don't want to say that this is always wrong. Like sometimes these are fine, and in certain circumstances you'll have something like this. But it's not so much about realism at this point, but it's about and like this is a small case. Like I don't, I might not even give this note. I'm just bringing it up because I'm trying to illustrate the point between, like what would really happen and like what's distracting and like like what plays better for your eye. And sometimes like a softer shadow just sits in the background more and it allows your eyes to like view what's really important in the scene. So that's kind of why I kind of like I always like hit those notes, and I was like, yeah, I think like get rid of that hard second shadow, get rid of that hard second shadow, and it's like sometimes in certain circumstances, depending on the way that the sun is bouncing, you can get a second shadow in the opposite direction. That is pretty hard. Um, so it's not always wrong, but it's just like it's just the way that you want to. It's the impression you want to leave your viewer. Um, So it's like you don't want to like confuse with them with like crossing shadows and stuff like that. And yeah, I I like um, pretty much everything else that you're doing. I would be careful here. It looks like maybe there's something happening because I see this like shadow line here and it gets dark, but then this is bright. So like shadows should be unified um, pretty much across the board depending on like what's happening. Like if I go to luminosity, you can kind of see here like you know, like this sits together as a shadow better than this sits together as a shadow. Um, so just, it's like keep that in mind. And again, like I think the image is really nice. I'm really picking out like the tiniest little details now, and it's kind of up to you how far you're going to take them. For me, I think this image is like really working. Uh, like this back part is perfect, and then this area here is really really nice, and then I really like this part here. So I think like this is kind of where the work, you know, that you might have left like little notes if this was like a film or something. Um, but again, you know, it's like when you guys are working on this stuff, a lot of times it's like shading that's holding you back. You know, uh, like if you were working in a team, like this section of the wall hitting this ground so like flatly, would probably either be dressed with like other things, or it would have some sort of like ground detail, like dirt that's been built up on the bottom, and it would kind of like play well with your eye, instead of having this like really evenly textured area, that's kind of like blank. Like this is an area where you'd put like a bike or something. Um, so I don't like, what I'm trying to get at is I think your lighting is really good, and I think sometimes it's just like other things holding you back, visually. So yeah, I think it's really nice. This part's really working for me here in the right side. Little technical stuff I would try to fix. People tend to like, if you're looking for a job, um, people will pick out like little things, and not use them against you, but they will like ask you about them, and then like you have to kind of have an answer for that. um, so just like be aware of like things in your own work. um, but yeah, Austin, great work. If if uh, if I would sum up notes for you for like a next step, it would be to maybe soften these shadows, add a little bit of this bounce that's on this guy here, on this barrel, and maybe this plant here. Unify the shadow work here, and like whatever, make sure that that's like not a rendering mistake. It looks like something's up here, like either the bounce light's coming up and hitting this real hard but not hitting the building. There's like some kind of uh, issue there. And then like this area for some reason for me feels really like artificial and CG, whereas this area for me feels really like, it feels really nice. It feels like you pushed the like that color. um, I'm also seeing like that this red light doesn't reach the end, and I would just make sure that that's it looks like there's a light that's like off the wall a little bit. uh, you might want to push that wall behind and then light link it off the building. I think that might solve some of your issues there. But yeah, I'm literally picking at like the smallest stuff here. Um, so however you want to approach it is good for you. Like if you want to move on, like if you're tired of the set and you don't want to keep going with it, by all means. I think it's like it was a good exercise for you one way or another. If you want it for your reel, um, I would definitely fix some of those things. And then the other thing I wanted to talk to you about, because you showed your reel last week, I thought that reel was really strong. I think that what would do the most for you is like actually having motion, because you only had like one scene, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you only had that like action scene, and it looked really nice. I just think like you could do with like one more in there. Um, and sometimes like even with these sets, like I know you're showing like, uh, you're showing a still. It's like if you like put like a handheld camera, uh, that's just like in place but like moving around a little bit, it can add a little bit of interest to your scene to see like some parallax and stuff like that, or like just some like change in perspective. It makes the shot look more like pleasing, when it's not just a still. So it can like help you again. But if you start rendering it and there's a lot of noise, I would just do a still and move on. But yeah, if you have any questions, let me know. But yeah, great work.
Thank you. Thank you for everything. I think I will do all the notes you just said and try moving the camera and stuff forward. Yeah, and do a shot.
Yeah, cool. Like I said, a lot of times I really think it's just small things that, it's kind of, you guys got a scene from somewhere and you're inheriting like a bunch of, uh, texture work and whatever. And it's sometimes even like just the lighting situation you try to put in there is like the textures themselves work against you. Um, so like even this door here is like really, it's like a photorealistic texture, and it looks like a little flat, and I think those little things can like throw off what would otherwise be like a really great, image. Um, so just stuff like that. Wherever you see like a flat, wall or like a big thing that looks like a flat texture, you gotta kind of like try to throw something in there, either like a gradient, or like maybe something added in there, some other asset or something, Uh, but I think the lighting is strong. So yeah, good
Thank you.
job. Justin, yeah, I think this is cool. I It's really fun like watching animation. I feel like we've seen like a lot of stills, so it's like it's kind of refreshing. And this is like Austen, going back to this, is like this is kind of what I'm saying, is like having something like this on your scene, kind of, it and you do have some motion, but it just like adds a lot to your reel when you have it. So um, but going back, Justin, I would say that I think the dings are kind of like hit or miss. Some cases, I think they're looking really nice. First frame, perfect. You have this like nice darkening here, the lights going well, like they're both round, they're just on the corner, like you've hit like every single note here. As she starts to move though, like I think in some cases it can like fall apart a little bit. um, so there were like some frames where I was looking at like here, it's like one's on, one's off. Here she looks like insane. Like if this was your still, um, you know, like it makes her look a little crazy because it's like it's in this like weird place. And like I'm not laughing at your work. I hope you don't take it that way. I'm laughing at like how impactful the dings are, to the overall look of the character. Like if those weren't there, I feel like she would look out normal. But it just goes to show like how much character just like some of these things can like actually give, to you. So what I would, and then some cases they get way too big. So you see here, it's like I don't know, like it almost seemed like the animator was like scaling the eyes up or something. Like I'm not sure, but it just seemed like for some reason they were much bigger here. So and then they tend to like they move on their own there. So these were like things I was picking out, not necessarily like framing through, but you like if I play it, like you can see like some of the like motion in the dings when they're on their own, and like they like and then like there was like a nice one there, like this one's pretty cool. I think this is working well. Like maybe this one needs to be lower. Whenever you do dings like these, it can, especially if the character's emoting a lot like this, it can be a real pain. And a lot of times you have to like go in like, hopefully you're doing this in like comp and not in lighting. Um, but you might have to like go in there like and key it every few frames to get to like, like the look that you want. So like here, make sure like they follow even when they're looking down. I think like sometimes you can keep them, and then make sure they don't like get too big, especially compared to like some of your keyframes. Like that size is perfect. um, and then some of these other sizes like just get way too big. So like if I like compare this to like that size, and I think you want these little ones, like the littler ones, not too tiny, but not the full size of the of like top down iris to pupil. Um, but yeah, so I think you're just gonna have to go in and like key them and like make sure that they're like behaving naturally, um, as it plays. Uh, Justin, can you tell me like how you're doing this? Were you doing it with a PMAT, or were you doing it like with like a rendered spec?
Yeah, so those ones are rendered spec. I rendered out each eye separate, and it has just like a light, it's just like a light that is the spec in the eye. So
Mm.
I was trying to see how close it got, but I'll probably end up just doing it all in comp
Yeah, it's hard.
because I have each eye rendered separate. Yeah, it was
Mm.
tough.
Yeah, it's a really difficult like thing to get it, because like where that shape is and like where they're looking, it can change so drastically. Like even in film, like the eye look is so controlled. So yeah, I mean, I would just make it easy as possible on yourself, where you can get that like look without like killing yourself with renders. um, unless like you can do something like throw the scene into like Unreal and render out, like do it like, set it up so that you can do it and then render out a final look when you like it. But yeah, I would definitely try comp and see if like the PMAT works for you or not. I don't know if you were able to get like a points pass rendered or not, but if you are, like it can really help you to people called it like sticky dings, where you could just stick like a mat of a circle in one place, and like no matter what she was doing, it would just follow, you know, and it would just stay there, same size, same location, and then you can art direct it from there. Uh, so yeah, I would try that. But I think honestly, the animation as a whole. I know I'm like picking on your eyes right now, but the animation and the lighting as a whole is so nice. Like it's all looking good. The shadows like are playing nicely here. It's a really really nice like piece for your reel. Um, and I'm sure that the animators like super happy to have such a nicely lit piece. So I think you did a wonderful job here, and not to take anything away. And it really just comes down to the eyes. Sometimes it's like that last detail can just like take you a lot of time. So I would just see how you could do it in comp. Like if you can get a points pass out, if you can actually do a ding in there, great. Um, Sometimes people even did like UV'd dings, and they would render those out. So you would just take like the eye and then stick a ding in the texture map and then render them separately. Um, that is a little harder, because if you do that, then you're kind of locked in, right? Like you can't change them. So, and then you end up having to like animate your UV map over time. But if one location works, it's like it can be like a good workaround to like not having to do a lot of other things. Um, and then the other thing I would say watch out for is, if you do sticky dings, right, where you're just going to stick them on with like a points pass or a point mat, Um, Sometimes it can look a little weird when like they're blinking. So let me grab a frame real quick. Yeah. So sometimes it can look a little weird because like in this case, like with the points pass, it doesn't care if she's blinking or not, and so there'll be like a really strong ding, like right, where in the blink. So you have to like go in and uh, kind of like animate it off, during those frames or something like that, or animate it up, or just make sure that like it's looking natural. It's very nitpicky, but I guarantee you that like whoever's watching this, they're gonna play it, and they're gonna immediately look at your character's eyes, and they're gonna see like how that plays together. And if it doesn't play well, it's gonna work against you. It's like no one's gonna look at your character; they're just gonna pick on your eyes. Um, and in that sense, I feel like sometimes the eyes break a little bit. I'm not sure if like the eyes are poking through or not, but I like here it looks like it might not actually even be poking through. It could be that the we're seeing the eye um, through the like eyelashes, but it looks a little like weird. That might be just something you can paint, like just get like a roto paint. So you just like grab a paintbrush and then select the I did it wrong. Select that color, and then like you can basically just paint it out on the frame. And like you can see that it's just and I didn't even paint it well. You can see that it's like less distracting, to not have that little sliver of white in there. Again, like super nitpicky, but you're trying to really like show your best work, and you're trying to make sure that it's flawless. You don't want somebody to be like, oh, well, what's this? And I've heard I personally, I've always had like decent interviews where I didn't feel like someone was picking at my work, but I have heard from other people that they will like go through like frame by frame and ask you what you were thinking, like about certain things. So um, it really depends on like the company culture and their interview process. But you just don't want to be caught off guard. It's like anything that they say, like to have an answer for it one way or another. But yeah, great work. That's really my only note. If you wanted to plus this, if you like really wanted to um, like really like knock this out of the park, right? This is like super bonus points. You could see about throwing dust in the air, like little specks that kind of move around, that kind of mix in with the color and the haze that's coming in. It can be difficult to get right, but I'll send you a video, because I think I've seen like a few good ways to do it cheaply where like it doesn't look terrible. And I think you can like try it within like 30 minutes and see if it's working for you. But it just might add a slight bit of life to the top left side of your frame during the playing. And I think it'll like bring the whole scene together, because like right now nothing's happening up here, and you don't want to focus on the dust, but it can be helpful. So I'll send you a video of like someone's technique that I've seen and I've used, that is pretty good, and then you can see if it works for you. Great. If not, I wouldn't spend more than 30 minutes on it, because the shot looks good as is. So, but yeah, that's it. Awesome work. This came a long way from when I first saw it. I mean, it always looked nice, but I think the final's looking so pretty.
Thanks so much.
Yeah. Let's see, who's, just in case I missed someone. So, all right, we got the same people. Okay, Ruby. yeah, so this is like your big scene, like the high res render.
Yes, a little bit bigger than the last ones that I've been submitting yet.
Yeah, no, I think it's looking good. Um, everything's looking like I remembered it. And like the detail is level is really high on a lot of stuff. Um, I think like when seeing it bigger, the one thing I would do is like whatever like haze you have. So this kind of happens when an image gets bigger and you have like an erode or a dilate or a blur. Those change, and a good way to see the difference is to use like this thing right here on the top right. So I can't really show you the difference here, but when you're working on your own work, right? Let's say you're working on like a high res image or something like that, and you change this from like 1.1 to like 1.4 or 1.1 to 1.8, you will see that like anything that you have in there that's like a blur, any kind of like pixel enlarging gain or something like that, will act differently across the board. So like sometimes when you get to these like finals, you'll see that like maybe it looks a little too soft or something like that. Like looking up here, you can see like more clearly that there's like a 30 pixel or like a 15 pixel blur or something. So that's kind of some place where you might want to like go back and adjust it. And it's because I think the reason why I picked it out is because the softness that you have is nice, but you can see that like you have a lot of detail here, and that's looking really cool in high res. But right in the eye area, you're getting this like that like consistent bloom around it, and I think it like would work better if it was a little sharper on the eye. Um, like this stuff, just a tad sharper, because I think the higher contrast will lead your eye there, versus like what happens with blooms is like you're lowering your contrast and you're kind of making it a little bit more like milky, and that has a really nice effect, but it can affect your like contrast levels. So I would say like maybe go a little lower on this, and I think you'll see like the eye immediately like pop a little bit more than you have it. So yeah, that's like my only, like, having seen this at this like level here, that's really like my only note. And I think like this stuff's like sitting better back here. I would maybe again like see like the colors of the background are gonna be like challenging. You want to make them there's a word in Greek for it, but I can't remember it now. You want to like make it so that it's like it helps your composition, and I think right now like this color is the only color of this like greenish yellow that I see, and I think you might want to change this, or like if you want to keep this color, that's fine, but I would introduce either like one or two more so that it's not the only one. Like you want to even it out completely, the background shouldn't be like it should be like a feature, but not one that you focus on, so that's just like something that's kind of pulling my eye back here, and it's just because it's like the only color of this type. And in luminance, I feel like maybe it's too bright as well. Like this should be your brightest area here, So I think I would like knock it down and then maybe change the color a slight bit. I think probably what's going on is like it's got too much green. Because like in the blue channel it disappears. In the red channel it's about as bright as all the other reds that you have back there. But in your green channel, it's like the brightest thing along the horizon that you have. So yeah, I don't know how many people like do this like RGB stuff, but it helps me like it's hard to like see what it does to your image, but it helps me see like which blues are going out of control, which greens are going out of control, and which reds or whatever are going out of control. It just helps me plan a little better to see like where something is happening versus Luma, which is just like your overall luminosity. So yeah, but I mean no other notes than that. I think this is a really nice like I think this like shows off your like texturing skills as well as your lighting. And it's kind of like a cute like little story too. Yeah, great work. Hopefully you can figure out that roto stuff. And again, like if you're doing something in like Nuke, feel free to send me an image if something's like not working. If I can help you, I will. And then yeah, so this like your blurs and stuff like that, I think just need to, you can kind of see it here, like how even it is. So again, I think like it's just like a little, because you have more pixels and that same amount of blurring, it's either like working more or less than it was in your lowered image. And then I would clear the eyes up.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I'll take that and if I getting those shifts, I'll for sure check your text or something.
Cool.
Thanks.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll move on to, I wanted to look at, so we'll start from order of submission now. This one was, and I'm just gonna go and look. So we're all the way here. Okay, so Jordan, he posted this T-Rex and he wanted to talk about like what AOVs to like render. I think that's, it's kind of smart like to go and kind of make a list and see like what you need early on. So yeah, let's take a look at this this piece and we can just analyze it. I think you can see it in the So yeah, it's a super cool piece, really nicely like animated, and the camera's moving a lot. There's a lot to look at. Well, the first thing you have to ask yourself is like, are you going to render your motion blur like in the render, or are you going to do it in comp? In which case, you'll need to render out your motion vectors. I generally don't render out any like occlusion or anything like that. I would think a good renderer kind of does that. Yeah, I would definitely render out a points pass so that I can get like an AP matte in there. It helps because what's going to be happening is in your scene, as the character's walking through, you're probably going to want to place mats in places to like darken things in comp or something like that. Like potentially like this plant here could be too bright, so you can actually use an AP mat to like have that area encircled as a mat, and then you can darken it and it'll stick onto the ground because it just stays in place in the world. So that can be like extremely helpful for you. So definitely a points pass. I mean, I would render my fogs separated out, your beauty pass separated out, and then like, yeah, I think like that's all you really need. I'm gonna just like read through this a little bit. Yeah, like you don't need anything special for doing like diffusions and things like that. I will say like having good fog like from the get-go in the render will help you more than anything. The last thing you want to do in a shot like this is like be editing like or rotoing like fog to like remove sections of it. You just want it to work for you. So definitely having your fog like figured out and rendered separately, with like minimal work in comp will help you out a lot. Things like diffusion and glows and stuff like that. I don't know that in this one like you'd have anything that's glowing, but like for diffusion and stuff like that, and you can kind of do all that stuff in comp. I don't see any like special helper layer that you need, and different people render things differently, depending on like what studio you're in. Like I know some studios love rendering out individual lights and then they basically composite the whole, like they don't just composite, but they like compose like the entire image like in comp, and so like the key is separate, the fill, the ambient, the skylight, all that stuff is separated and they're putting it together. That can be great. You have a lot of control, but you also it's like heavier and more complex and can get messy. So the answer is like somewhere in between. A bunch of like comp to help, but you still want to have like a good structure when you render it. At least that's my take. But yeah, so I would say points pass, maybe your motion vectors if you're trying to save time and you don't want to like do the motion blur in render. It could be like a way to save some time on your renders, and like, or if you don't want to save time, at least like up your render quality, and like put the hours into like other quality pieces, and then if you really want to, you can render like your sun or your main key separate, and then with the points pass you can actually do like make things look like it's a gobo or something like that. Sometimes you can like do interesting things like that too. But yeah, nothing too crazy. I think it's a good scene, it's well composed. The other consideration I would say is you might want to think about rendering your characters separate from your background. It will give you the most control on your characters when you're compositing together. So if you render like the T-Rex and the raptor separately, and then the background separate, and then maybe the effects separate, you'll have like these really large pieces that you can work on separately, and like push and pull things without having to adjust other things. It might help you get your like compositing stack in a good place, so that you kind of like have just more control but less complexity. So yeah, but cool scene. I'm looking forward to seeing it someday. Okay, and then moving on, we will go to this. I think this is really cool. I like what you did as and just to get your name. Okay, I don't know the full name here. Bipul. I think it's cool. Like, I like this image that you made, and like if you just submitted this image as like on its own, I would say like it's really cool. Like I like the sunlight. I like the the shadow work that you did. I kind of like pretty much everything about it. Like I like this like atmosphere that you added in the sky, but where I have issues with it is like this is the work that you posted, and I don't feel like you're hitting the prompt. And let me explain, why I think that. When I look at this image, what I notice is not the bright parts, but actually the darkness of it. Like it's really pretty, and it's because it's like lit, brightly rim lit, amongst all these dark shapes around it. And you can argue like, is this dark right here? And I would argue, yeah, like it's in shadow, but like the mountains are dark, and even the house is like pretty much in shadow. The sunlight's hitting from behind, and so I think it gives it this like spooky kind of like warm. It's like a really strange feeling that it puts out, and I think like your work here is like it's super pretty. I think you're like lighting this house, um, like it's a feature, like, and I think you're doing such a good job here of it. But if I was to give you notes on this, I would say that like I'd want to feel that house backlit, and I'd want to feel like a more golden sky, um, and I'd want to feel like darker, uh, like some darker like mountains back here with like some rims coming through to really emphasize that like that we're seeing this building from like a dark, like shadowed side. And I think that would like, like all you need to do is like take all your lighting, like parent it together, and then rotate it around the house. And I think like once the house gets to a point where it's rim lit, you'll see that like you're going to get closer to this look. And I think it's going to do something like very quickly to get to where you are. So yeah, like I think, your lighting is good. Like if you like the look of this image, and you don't care so much about hitting this look, we can talk about like next steps and like what I think you might do, just to make this image look good. But if you were asking me like, it like if we were working on a team together, and this was the reference, I think like you can do things very simply to get to this look, with the lighting that you have, because I think it's such a strong start, that it just would take like a few differences, like if your camera moved to the backside of this house, you'd almost be there. So let me give some notes. I'm going to just give some notes based on what I think you need to do to get to this look, or like at least the feeling, right? You'll never hit this look exactly, but the feeling of it. So one thing is, I think that your sun should basically be coming from behind like this, and it shouldn't be hitting this building like frontwise. It should be hitting like all these rims, like this thing should be coming through, and like this part of the house, and the shadow should be kind of moving towards us, like maybe at an angle. And then same thing with the sun, like here, like I think there's something really nice about this rim of the mountain compared to the darkness of the house here. It's like that constant, I don't know, like if you guys like watch a lot of movies, right? One of the things you'll always notice that they do is they always do like dark light, dark light, dark light, and this has that in spades, right? Because it's like dark light, dark light, and then like dark here, light, dark, and it adds interest to your scene for free. So I think you kind of have that structure where you can do that same thing. So you do like a rim and then dark, and then a rim and then dark, and even the trees can kind of play into it, rim and then dark, and then rim and then dark. And this guy can be like rimmed here, maybe all along the edge here, and then dark on the inside. And I think it will just that change alone will get you so much closer to that. I think it'll provide that like spooky but warm feeling that I think you're looking for. I would also change the sky color to kind of more mimic this, because you want to feel that color and that shade, that like warm, like low level sun. Like it's not a hot day, so the sun isn't like white, it's yellow, um, so like you want to feel these like yellows, in the sky and on your snow, you know and then the other thing I was going to say is, like, I think even this image alone, the fill level on like the trees here and this building, like I can tell that you have a light just off camera that's lighting this building from the right, but it shouldn't. There definitely should be fill there, and there should be color, but it shouldn't be this bright. You want to feel the difference between like your sun and your shadows. And right now, if I like, let's just remove color from it. It's like this stuff here is almost as bright as your sun. And I think the value structure is fighting what you're trying to achieve. So definitely like lower on that light, and then you want to like keep the color in line with like with what you're looking for, so something like this. Yeah, and then the other thing I was going to say is, so I would try those first, like turn that light around, make sure that your shadows are like darker, especially on the house. Like I think like this level here is really nice, but I think the house got too filly. So rotate the light, check your fill levels, check the color of the sky, adjust, make sure that sunlight is coming from behind and like lighting the trees, in an interesting way, and this mountain and, the dark stuff. The other thing I was going to say is, the depth of field that I'm seeing here is a little strange. It makes the scene feel a little bit miniature. If you were like shooting this house, I feel like we're really far away. The foreground depth of field seems okay to me, but I feel like, you'd be shooting, it's a bright day, so, or like maybe, on something like this. So you're not throwing your aperture away. You're not like opening your, like, not lowering your f-stop. And so I think you'd get less back here, and it would make the scene feel bigger, by having less blur here. You can kind of see it like right here. You see how like this mound here has pretty much no blur, and this side here does. I think that's kind of a mistake. Like you shouldn't feel that like difference so greatly. I think it'll make your scene feel bigger and more like composed, like a real photo, if that wasn't there. So I would just kind of get rid of it if it's like not in render. But yeah, I mean, this is like a super strong start. And again, like if you didn't show this, I would have just given you notes on like the blur and the side of the building being too bright. Same with the tree here, and then maybe like a few other things, and I think you would have been done, So it's really up to you how you want to progress. It's your image, and it's what you're going to put out there. So if this is something that you like and you think you've done a good job, like I agree, I think it looks pretty cool. So I would, just fix the side of the building, fix this like extra light here, just either remove it or make it really low level and colored so that it had a little bit of like a nice color to it. But if you want this feeling, I would definitely, I think you're close. It's just like adjusting like the way that your shot is structured, and you want to kind of feel, like you feel this building because of this bright background and it's all dark. And so you have that same thing here where you can make this background super bright, not super bright, but this like yellowy brightness, and then feel the dark building in there. And I think that would just get you so close to this look. So you can give that a try too. Again, like it's all about like what image you want. And I'm not here to push anything. So, but I think you did a great job with the image as is. So yeah, let me know. I'd be really interested to see what you do. And I think you've got some really strong skills as a lighter. So keep going. Okay, let's we're moving on to this. This is Sparta. So yeah, really cool. I like what you're doing with this like setup. I came around when I started. I feel like that you started posting this stuff like maybe a few days before, and I was talking to Mike, so I know like a lot of the notes that he gave you here. I would ask you, please contact me with these answers. But are you doing any comp at all to this, or is this just like you're just rendering? Because if I had to guess, I feel like there's like it's just all render, and you're just doing like lighting training, like how to get like lights in the right place to make it look the way that it should. And there's a lot to that kind of exercise, and I think it's really important, right, to like figure out like where should the light go, how big should it be, like what makes something feel the way it does. So yeah, please let me know like what you're doing, because I don't want to give you like comp notes if you're really just doing everything in render, and that's as far as you're going with this. But I will just tell you like a few things, and maybe I'll do like a bit of comping to show you like how close I think this is, and like what you really need to do. So the first thing I'm going to do is I want to just bring up your work with sorry. There we go. Okay. And they're both like a different size, but I think it's actually kind of working in our favor. Actually, you know what? I do want to see it. Let's see. What's this one? Sorry. All right, so like this is a really good way, when you're A/Bing stuff, it's a great way to see like what's happening and like what's, what you need to kind of do. So right away, one of the things that's standing out for me the most is, and let me just check. I just want to make sure I'm doing the right thing here. I don't want to like look at the wrong image. Okay, so second image is the correct modified one, and this one's the old one. Okay, so it's a really interesting thing, because like this image here is so heavily color corrected, and if you don't know that and you're trying to hit stuff with lighting, sometimes it can be like almost impossible. Here they've like crushed blacks, and they've done like they've made sure that the reds stick out, and like there's a whole lot of stuff going on in post that sometimes it's like just super hard to replicate with lighting. But if I just look at your structure, like the rims and like the the lighting of these characters here, I think you're really, really close. Like I can see this front guy like almost lit very similarly to like what this like Leonidas over here is And then I can see like why you added the red, because there's such a like strong red element here, but in the lighting there isn't really any red here. It's just kind of like all sunlit, and what you're seeing is like the culmination of the color timing, like basically the final process of like, hey, we have these images, and then it's like, great, let's see what we can do with them. Like you're seeing like that final process, and like they're leaving the reds in really strongly so that you can tell that these guys are our heroes, or like the Spartans or whatever, and like that's not them. They're using it as a like a storytelling element, right? Everyone has like red cloaks. It's like, I'm from Greece, and I can tell you, like, I don't know if they had red cloaks or not, but it's just like a story element that they're like using. Um, so I think in that sense, like, it's successful what you're doing here, because you're just doing it in lighting, right? Like you're just putting in lights to signify like what's happening here, and you're doing in lighting what would happen in color timing. So I think you're doing the right thing, but I think it's difficult for you to get there with like the structure that you have in place right now. So what I'd like to do is maybe spend like 5 or 10 minutes going over this scene, um, sorry, and just doing like small changes in comp that I think will help, maybe not get you to this final look, but it will help like show you how close your structure is, and that like maybe it's time to like move on to something that has like a better sorry better textures, and and you want to start doing some comp work to like throw things in. Hold on, I'm gonna mute my mic 1 second. Sorry, I think I've been talking too long. Okay, so what I want to do is just look at this image, and I'm going to keep this in mind, and I'm just going to try to just very simply, and you just have a still here, so I'm just going to throw rotos and some stuff like that, just to try to see what I can do to get you to this level here in some way. So first thing that comes to mind is that I think because you have because you have a flat background, you're trying to like put a light back here that kind of emanates off. I think that's working actually surprisingly well, but I think your color's off, and I think like there's no it's a really interesting frame if you think about it this way, because there's no vignetting, except for here, so they're really trying to get this like almost solid color background, right? Like if we look at if we go ahead and look at the luminance here, it's almost like solid except for where the sun's coming through, right? Like there's not much darkening anywhere, and that's because they want you as much as possible to see the silhouettes of the characters coming through. If they darkened this side, it'd be harder to see these characters sometimes because they're already dark. So right away, that's like something that I would, go in and do. And I'm going to try to, let's see, I'm going to try to do a roto without going insane here. So let's see. All right. And I just want to show, hey, Rubi, this is kind of what I do to make sure my rotos work. I'm using just a regular reformat connected to the BG of the roto, and what it does is it makes sure that like no matter what's happening, like that your rotos are always kind of set to this format here. It's kind of like a weird trick, right? Because like it's just taking like in this when you look at the area here, it's gonna say like, clip to format and stuff like that. Like that format is being taken through that line there. I'm not sure like how you were setting it up, but I just wanted to show you. That's what I was talking about the other day. I'm not sure like what your setup is, and it might not work for you, but yeah. So without going too crazy, I just want to maybe try something different for your background. I'm not going to be super accurate here, but I want to like get it at least to the point where it feels, that we're not like, that it doesn't like ruin the structure. I'm sure watching me roto is great TV. It's like I should start a YouTube ASMR like rotoing channel where all you hear is my clicks. Let's see. Okay. I'm just gonna go there, and then all right. So I think if you like gamut up the whole thing, and then let's toss a little blur on this so it's not so sharp. So you want to gamma it all up, and then I would actually then change the color as well using that same roto. And I know that like I know that I have these guys included. I'll fix them in a second. So right away I feel like we're not quite there, right? But like already the sky is feeling a little better. So if you instead throw a little like let's see if I throw some like the slightest bit of yellow, like a warm yellow to it, I think that's like getting us a little closer to that, and I'm just eyeballing stuff here. I'm not like there's no like real there's no science here. I'm literally just eyeballing through things that I think you need. So again, like great, we're in the situation now where we can kind of clearly see our characters. And here, let me I'm gonna, now that I have this, I'm gonna grab another row. Okay. Don't worry, once we have these rotos, it'll be super easy to then use them to adjust your image. And again, I just wanted to point out that like this isn't like what you want to do. You want to kind of get this stuff in lighting, but I'm kind of illustrating to you two things. One, how close I think your lighting is, and like how just like a small bit of like comp can get you there. And then two, just to show you like that comp stuff. Let's do. Okay, cool. And let's see. Yeah, cool. So we have this like, background that's working a little bit better now. It's almost in that like range. Then what I'll do is I can take this and instead of just having it be an alpha, I'll give it like a color. So I can take this, and now what I'll do is I'll blur it a lot, and then I'll just add it on top of your scene. So why am I doing this? it's because there is a lot of like diffusion and just like color bleeds going on here. You know, they're just like that light is kind of wrapping around and like, you know, hitting, there's like a fog element, you know, there kind of isn't, you know, but there's just so much done in color timing in this. So um, like by kind of throwing that in there, and I'm going to just color just the color again. And what you can do is make it so that it's only coming through like on the characters themselves. So I'm just looking at where it's hitting here, and I want to essentially remove some portion of it. Because again, like we don't want to lose our heroes in this like light, you know, we want to feel them, because if I look here, it's like I can see them very clearly, and their black levels are really out there. It's these guys who are kind of getting like a little bit of that light, you know, they're just like one big mass getting pushed off the edge. And so you want to feel that as much as possible. So, you know, let's see, this is over. I'll do like a screen. So again, it's not super great, but it's starting, you're starting to add this like, you know, this little bit of like haze and like, you know, you're starting to add some atmosphere. And it's like, you know, the light's kind of crossing over, and you can even go really intense with this where, you know, you're adding, you know, you can actually just take a roto, stick it like right there, and then add it on top. Sorry, just a sec. Oh, that, no wonder. Let's go again to screen. Expose a little bit. Change the color. Just make it that like desaturated color, and just start throwing, make it a little darker. And then sometimes like you gotta like adjust, you know, like now it's like so blurred that it's starting to look strange, but it's okay, because like that's kind of, you know, what you want in a way. And you know, you can kind of control how much of that is going over. But I just feel like right away, you know, looking at the two now, you know, I kept your red lighting here, and I, you know, and again, I think it's because you're going for that feeling. It's like right away I feel like, you know, just changing the background color, and like, you know, maybe that like bloom, or, you know, the light coming around them is too much here. But you know, I'm not trying to get to like a perfect image here. I'm just trying to show you like you're really close. And I think like maybe it's time to incorporate like, you know, you need to do like a fog, you need to do like some kind of like haze element here. You know, and I think like you've gone as far as you can with lighting, you know, because a lot of it comes in the texture. You know, I think your lights and the where they're at, all that stuff is like really nice. And like, look, if we just look at your original here, and I just, A-B it. You can see, like, I didn't really do anything, but, right away it's giving us that, like, light coming from behind them, and there's, like, some atmosphere here. And again, I'm not saying, like, what I did is perfect or, like, it looks like, but, I just think there's a lot there that you need to add, and that stuff can help, tremendously. But if I, if you know, as a scene, I feel like, you're either going to start doing some comp work here, and like throwing in volumetrics and, like maybe like snag this background, like paint out the characters and, or like just find a different image of a sky that looks similar here and put it in your background here, and you'll see like that will change your whole like composition. But I think the lighting work that you've done here is really nice. Getting the accents in, getting the rims in there. So it's like my advice would be to like move on and start working with like textured scenes, and try some like harder stuff, because I think you have like the right eye. You're doing the right things, placing your lights in the right places. It's just about like adding those next levels, and I think you're gonna shine.